Welcome to our channel, Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. Denis Nilsen appeared to be an ordinary man living a quiet life in London, but inside he carried a deep sense of loneliness that shaped everything he did. Between 1978 and 1983, he met young men who were often vulnerable, lost, or far from home. He invited them to his flat, offering warmth and companionship, yet his fear of being abandoned twisted his actions into something tragic and violent. While he behaved politely in public and blended into everyday life, he was hiding a dark secret that would remain unknown for years, until a simple plumbing problem revealed the truth he could no longer escape. Denis Nilsen lived a quiet and ordinary life on the outside. To the people who passed him on the street, he looked like a polite man who minded his own business. He worked in everyday jobs and did not draw much attention. But inside, he felt deeply lonely. He found it hard to form close friendships, and he often felt invisible. When he moved into a small flat on Melrose Avenue in 1978, he believed he had finally created a place where he could shut out the world and escape his feelings. Instead, the flat became the center of a secret darkness he kept hidden from everyone. At this time in his life, he spent many evenings wandering through London, visiting pubs where young men gathered. Many people he approached were struggling with their own problems. Some had no stable place to stay. Some were far from family and had nobody to look after them. Nilsen remembered his own lonely childhood, and he felt a strange connection to men who seemed abandoned or lost. But his desire for company slowly twisted into something unhealthy. Instead of seeking true relationships, he tried to control the people he brought home. The first time he killed, it happened suddenly. He later claimed he acted without planning, but the truth was more complicated. He feared being left alone again, and when the moment came, he chose to prevent the young man from leaving. After the man died, Nilsen sat in silence, unsure how to face what he had done. In his mind, he created excuses. He told himself the young man was peaceful now, free from life's problems. These thoughts allowed him to ignore the reality of the harm he had caused. This way of thinking became a pattern that would continue for years. After the first death, Nilsen began living a double life. During the day, he talked with his co-workers, joked during lunch breaks, and behaved like an ordinary man. Nobody suspected anything strange about him. At night, however, he returned to his flat and lived among secrets he would not share. He continued inviting lonely men back to his home. Sometimes they accepted because he offered warmth, food, or a place to spend the night. Sometimes they joined him simply because they trusted him. Each time, Nilsen felt a sense of power he could not resist. The quietness of his flat, combined with his inner fears, led him again and again to the same terrible actions. Over the next few years, the pattern grew. Whenever he felt a man might leave him or lose interest, he would panic. His fear of abandonment shaped everything he did. He believed he could keep a sense of companionship only by taking complete control. After each death, he told himself he would stop, that he would never do it again. But his loneliness returned stronger than before, and he felt trapped in a cycle he could not break. As bodies accumulated inside the flat, he faced a practical problem he never expected. Space became limited. He grew paranoid about the possibility of someone discovering his secret. In 1981, he decided to move to a different building, one he hoped would give him a fresh start and a quieter mind. He found a new place on Cranley Gardens, a building with a shared garden and a different layout. He believed a new address would help him change his behavior, but his mindset remained the same. Moving only separated him from the evidence he left behind. It did not free him from the thoughts that had driven him for years. His behavior in the new flat followed the same pattern as before. Again, he brought men home. Again, he tried to form connections. And again, his fear and need for control overpowered his conscience. But this building had a major difference. It did not allow him to hide the results of what he had done as easily as the last flat. The structure of the building forced him to change the way he disposed of remains. The drains were old and narrow, and although he believed he could quietly wash away the evidence, he underestimated how easily the plumbing could clog. While all of this was happening, Nilsen continued to seem harmless to the outside world. People who worked with him described him as calm, soft-spoken, and somewhat withdrawn. Some thought he was lonely, but many people in a big city were lonely, and it did not seem unusual. Others remembered he had strong opinions and sometimes spoke about fairness or kindness. No one imagined he was hiding crimes in his home. London was full of people who lived private lives, and Nilsen blended into the crowd. His ability to appear normal was one of the reasons his crimes continued for so long. By 1983, the pressure inside him was growing heavier. He felt trapped between his desire for company and the guilt he could no longer push out of his mind. His thoughts were becoming difficult to control. At the same time, something entirely outside his awareness was beginning to unfold. The drains of the building started to fail. Other tenants noticed strange smells and slow water flow. They contacted the building's maintenance workers. Nilsen did not realize that these simple reports would soon bring everything in his hidden life to the surface. This period, stretching from 1978 to early 1983, was marked by a lonely man's spiral into actions that harmed many lives. Each decision he made pushed him further from reality and deeper into a private world where he believed he could keep people with him by stopping them from leaving. Though he tried to hide the truth from himself and others, the consequences of his choices were building quietly, waiting for the moment when they could no longer be contained. When the drains of the Cranley Gardens building finally blocked completely, the tenants grew frustrated. They complained to the management, who sent a worker to inspect the system. The worker opened the access point outside the building and saw something he did not expect. He found remains that clearly did not belong in plumbing. Shocked, he reported the discovery immediately. The management called the police, who arrived quickly. They inspected the findings more closely and realized the remains were human. This discovery marked the beginning of the end for Nilsen's long-hidden crimes. The police started by asking the tenants questions. They wanted to know if anyone had seen or heard anything unusual. Nilsen appeared calm, even friendly. He did not show any sign of panic. He spoke politely and acted concerned, just like anyone else might when something disturbing is found on the property. But his calmness did not last long. After a more detailed inspection the next day, the police learned that the remains had likely come from one of the upstairs flats. The drain system made it possible to trace the source. When officers followed the line, they realized the blockage was directly connected to Nilsen's apartment. 2 officers knocked on his door. They expected questions, but what happened surprised them. When they explained why they were there, Nilsen responded with an unusual honesty. He quietly admitted that they would find more remains inside. He spoke in a flat, detached voice, as if describing events that no longer belonged to him. The officers, stunned, arrested him on the spot. They did not yet understand the scale of what he had done, but they knew they had uncovered something serious. At the police station, Nilsen spoke openly. He described the deaths in calm detail, not boasting and not emotional. It was as though he was relieved to finally stop hiding. He explained how loneliness had shaped his actions and how he believed he could not hold on to the people he invited home unless he took total control. Detectives listened carefully, trying to separate fact from confusion. They had to match his words with missing person reports and physical evidence. It was a long and difficult process. The investigation grew larger as officers searched both of his former homes. At Melrose Avenue, they found the remains he had left behind when he moved. Evidence from the past years began to surface, piece by piece. The police also interviewed people who had known him. Many were shocked. They remembered him as ordinary, even kind. They could not imagine how he had lived such a secret life. His co-workers described him as quiet but helpful. His neighbors recalled that he kept to himself but never caused trouble. This contrast between his public self and his private world became one of the most disturbing parts of the case. As the investigation continued, the police faced the difficult task of identifying the victims. Many of the men he targeted had been living unstable lives, moving from place to place. Some had no close family to report them missing. This made identification extremely challenging. Detectives used dental records, personal items, and descriptions from Nilsen's own statements to match names to remains. In some cases, full identification was never achieved. This lack of closure added sadness to an already tragic story. When the case went to trial in 1983, the courtroom was filled with reporters, lawyers, and observers. The public struggled to understand how someone who appeared so normal could commit such acts. Nilsen sat quietly, listening to the charges read against him. He admitted to the acts but argued over his own mental state, trying to explain the confusion and loneliness that had guided him. The trial focused on whether he had acted deliberately and with clear awareness of his choices. After long discussions and many witness testimonies, the court concluded that he was responsible. He was sentenced to life in prison, where he remained for the rest of his days. Inside, he kept to himself, writing long notes about his past and reflecting on his actions. He tried to make sense of what he had done, but nothing he wrote could undo the harm. The families of the victims had to cope with the pain he caused, and many felt the justice system could never fully compensate for their loss. Some found comfort in the fact that he was no longer free. Others continued to struggle with unanswered questions. Especially when loved ones remained unidentified. Over time, people studied his case to understand how someone could hide such a dangerous side while appearing harmless. Some researchers focused on his childhood, noting the loneliness and early experiences that shaped him. Others examined the way society overlooks vulnerable people who vanish quietly. Many pointed out how the lack of connection between community members allows those with harmful intentions to act without being noticed. His case became a reminder of the importance of social support systems, mental health awareness, and attention to missing individuals. Though many years have passed, the story of his crimes remains part of British criminal history. It is not remembered to glorify him, but to recognize the victims and acknowledge the importance of protecting those who are vulnerable. His actions caused lasting pain, and the lessons drawn from his case continue to guide discussions about safety, mental health, and the hidden struggles people may carry. Nilsen spent his final years in prison, separated from the world he once moved through so quietly. He died in custody, leaving behind a record of tragedy and unanswered questions. The men he harmed, their families, and the communities affected by his actions remain the true center of the story. Their lives and memories matter far more than the man who took so much from them. Understanding the case today means respecting those lives and recognizing the importance of care, connection, and vigilance in preventing similar tragedies. In the end, Denis Nilsen's hidden world collapsed the moment the truth came to light. His arrest exposed years of pain he caused to innocent men who trusted him in moments of need. The trial that followed made clear the harm he had done, and he spent the rest of his life in prison, far from the streets where he once blended in so easily. His story remains a reminder of how loneliness, secrecy, and unchecked fears can lead to terrible consequences. The focus now stays on the victims whose lives were cut short, and on the importance of protecting those who may be vulnerable and alone. Subscribe to Crime Loom, and join us as we unravel more heists, mysteries, and untold legends.